Eagle warriors, elite shock troops of the all-conquering Aztec Empire.
This is a society of warriors.
Armed with shock weapons. Captives die on the sacred altar.
They would literally pluck out your still pulsating heart.
Now they face a new kind of enemy from Spain.
They had never seen iron weapons. They had never seen horses.
Two cultures that must clash.
There are no rules. It's kill or be killed.
It ends in a bloody battle that will become known as the Night of Tears.
People trampling over other people.
They're running for their lives.
For the Eagle warriors, it is their finest hour.
This is certainly their largest military victory.
The mighty Aztec Empire is at its zenith. They came from the north. In less than 200 years, they ruthlessly conquer a wide swathe of Central America.
The Aztecs have to be absolutely ruthless, and they have to use violence in ways which intimidate local societies.
One by one, they knock out every nation that stands in their way.
The Aztecs were great warriors who were very good at battle.
An unflinching race, mobilized on a permanent war footing.
It's not numbers with the Aztecs, it's skill, ferocity, aggression.
Aztecs are literally born to fight.
From the time a male baby is born, he is personified as a warrior. He's given tiny weapons, little shield and bow and arrows. The midwife talks about it all as if he's going to grow up to be a warrior.
After the birth, a seasoned warrior takes away the baby's severed umbilical cord. He then buries it on a blood-soaked battlefield.
And this was a symbol of hope that the young boy would then aspire to and become a great warrior in his own right.
Military training starts early. From infancy, boys are enrolled at the House of the Youth.
Aztec education was tough.
Their whole point is to be better at this business than everybody else. That's it, that's all you do, military training. From the beginning to the end, it's a complete military monastic life.
Battle-hardened veterans are assigned to the novices. Their job? To turn boys into killing machines.
You take away that sense of individuality, you take away the sense of fear.
You would expect beatings or deprival of food.
You spend a lot of time drilling these people into automata, so that when they get to battle, they're not thinking, is this the right thing to do? There's the enemy, I hit him. That's my job.
The Aztec way of war is unique. They deploy their troops in a highly unusual way.
When the Aztecs went to war, they went to war to capture prisoners. The object is to hurt, maim, capture, but it's not to kill.
They didn't kill in battle. The idea was to capture a prisoner.
Being able to bring those captives back with you was a sign of great achievement.
The key is to break prisoners, but keep them alive. They are needed for a higher purpose. On the altar of the Great Pyramid, towering over the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan,
the captive would climb up the steps of the pyramid. He would be laid down across a sacrificial stone. His arms and legs held down by 4 priests so that he's stretched backwards and the chest is pulled outwards.
And a 5th priest would come down with a large flint knife and cut open your abdomen, reach inside and literally pluck out your still pulsating heart.
And the body would then be thrown down temple steps. And they would do this over and over again. It wasn't once, it was many, many times.
the ritual of human sacrifice terrifies other nations and intimidates them into submission.
The scale of human sacrifice is truly astounding, and it's much debated, but some people think that up to 50,000 people were sacrificed every year.
Carrying out over 130 sacrifices a day is killing on a truly industrial scale. But the Aztecs believe this mass slaughter is necessary. Their gods demand it.
The idea is that the gods let blood in order to create humanity, and therefore humanity must let blood to sustain the gods and to keep the sun moving through the sky.
Failure to feed the gods will have one certain outcome.
In the Aztec cosmology, if you don't continue regular and extensive human blood sacrifice, the sun won't come up, the crops won't grow, and we're all going to die.
Whether for spiritual or political reasons, the Aztecs believe human sacrifice is an existential necessity. It is so crucial that the empire develops a dedicated corps of special forces, trained to deliver captives, and lots of them. These men are called the Soldiers of the Sun. They are the Eagle Warriors. Eagle Warriors are the bravest and the best.
Warrior masculinity is central to Aztec identity. Men promote themselves, they promote their identity, they promote their importance through being warriors.
And as with today's special forces, entry into their ranks is highly selective.
A social and a military structure develops that privileges people who take a lot of captives.
This is how you earned your stripes, literally, and rose through the ranks of the military.
The more captives that they were brought to the capital, the more successful they were considered.
Today's modern armies all have their very own warrior elites. Units such as the Special Air Service, Navy SEALs, and Delta Force all train recruits not only to kill, but also to take the enemy alive. Ken Jones served with Great Britain's SAS, a body of men ruthlessly proficient in the art of taking captives.
Snatchers are an essential task of special forces units. I mean, the blood sacrifices have been placed now by intelligence gathering because of the essential need for governments to secure high-value targets and extract information from them.
And as it was for the Eagle Warriors, today's snatchers need a high degree of skill and courage.
To be involved in a snatch, it's just a short burst of intense aggression and fluidity. In the first few seconds, you know that the target or targets are going to react because you're trying to assert control of a situation. If it drags on, then it's a bad job.
Eagle Warriors don't have the sophisticated weaponry available to today's special forces. But they are kitted out with a range of arms designed to not only kill, but also incapacitate, stun, and immobilize. These weapons all have one thing in common. They are tipped with razor-sharp volcanic glass, found in abundance throughout the Valley of Mexico. It's called obsidian.
Obsidian can be harder than steel and much stronger in compression, but it's very, very brittle. So obviously you can't make a long sword out of it. So the Aztecs use an ingenious solution. This is the macahuitl, which is the Aztec equivalent of a sword. It's basically shaped hardwood with channels cut into the side into which these sharp obsidian blades are fitted. This gives a razor-sharp cutting edge to a heavy club-like weapon. Struck on the skull, it would cut through flesh and muscle and sinew, smash the skull, destroy the brain. You'd be dead almost instantly.
But to deliver victims for sacrifice, Eagle Warriors need weapons that don't just kill.
The Aztecs are looking fundamentally for captives. They want to be able to subdue their enemies, and so you can use it as a flat subdual weapon. You can beat somebody literally into submission by using the weight on joints, shoulders, knees, vulnerable points to render a man senseless. You've then got your captive to sacrifice.
The Aztecs also use obsidian to make a wide range of dart and arrowheads. They are lightweight, hard, and incredibly sharp.
But these are worthless without a means of delivery. In this case, the Aztecs used one of the simplest and most primitive forms of delivery, and that's this, the atlatl, or dart thrower. It's basically just a long piece of wood. In this case, it's been selected from a branch for its curve, so it fits the hand. And then a slot and notch is cut in to take the dart. It's very simple physics. All the atlatl does is extend the length of your arm, and that doubles the force I impart to the dart.
Armed with the atlatl, an Eagle Warrior can down an enemy from up to 100 meters away.
If they strike in the throat or the heart if you're unarmored, then they're going to kill.
But the atlatl is not primarily designed to kill, but to disable.
Their biggest effect is going to be to incapacitate and as a nuisance. In arms and legs, they're going to render the limbs useless. You can't run away, you can't fight back. You're injured, but you're not dead.
History Hit is an award-winning streaming platform built by history fans for history fans. Enjoy our rich library of documentaries covering key events and locations of the medieval period. History Hit's medieval offering features leading historians such as Dan Jones, Eleanor Janega and Kat Jarman. Not only that, but we've a rich library of audio documentaries covering every period of history through our network of podcasts. Sign up now for a free trial, and Chronicle fans get 50% off their first 3 months. Just be sure to use the code Chronicle at checkout.
Eagle warriors have one more use for obsidian. They fit it to the basic spear.
The Aztecs were using obsidian blades, razor-sharp edges, and a sharp thrusting point, but fixing it to a shaft to give them extra reach to get round the defensive weapons of their opponents and strike at vulnerable points. You can make lots of rapid, accurate strikes. You can strike at the throat, down into the groin, maybe even into armpits. And all the time, well within this safe area, beyond the reach of the enemy's weapons.
The obsidian-tipped spear is also the Eagle Snatch Squad's ideal tool for controlling their prisoners.
It's very useful for marshalling and herding captives. You can direct them to where you need them to be. And if you really need to, you can reverse the weapon and strike with the butt to subdue them and quell them.
Armed with their extensive range of weaponry, the Eagle warriors have come to dominate Central America. But soon, they will face a foe the like of which they can't even imagine. It all begins with a series of strange events in the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan. Montezuma is now in the 17th year of his reign. He presides over an empire that has never been bigger and never been stronger. But this all-powerful ruler is a deeply worried man.
The Aztecs were a culture that believed in omens, and there were 12 omens indicating that some kind of terrible catastrophe was going to happen.
Streaks of fire are seen shooting across the night sky. It is reported water in the lake surrounding the city has suddenly bubbled and boiled over. For no apparent reason, temples have suddenly caught fire and burnt to the ground.
It's hard to imagine what they would have made of this, other than being pretty terrified.
Then Montezuma receives disturbing reports from the very edge of his empire. A mysterious force of what are described as floating castles have been spotted approaching the east coast. Strange men come ashore. They have white complexions, wear bizarre outfits, and are armed with unknown powerful weapons. Hernan Cortés and his small band of conquistadors land on the mainland of America on Good Friday, 1519. They want to claim this land for their god and the King of Spain. They also plan to get very rich. But the Spanish are being tracked. Eagle warriors watch their every move and dispatch urgent reports back to the capital.
So Montezuma is really anxious to find out who they are, to find out what they've got, what they want, and how he's going to deal with them.
The emperor assembles his full war council to work out a plan of action.
Montezuma would have been surrounded by his closest and most senior advisors.
Many of the senior councils were comprised of senior military figures, so Eagle warriors would almost certainly have been part of those councils.
The War Council tries to make some sense of the astonishing drawings that have been made of the intruders. The Eagle warriors' attention is drawn to sketches of a strange and powerful unknown weapon.
This kind of random killing thing, you can kill somebody a long way away and it makes a lot of noise and smoke, so there's sound, there's smoke, there's shock.
And it isn't just unknown weapons the Aztecs are faced with.
So we've got two animals they're not familiar with.
They would have been completely flabbergasted by these giant creatures, these horses.
These Spanish fighting dogs, these are terrible things.
They had never seen horses, they had never seen dogs trained to kill.
So there's a lot of shock. There's a lot of, technology, anxiety comes in here. What is all of this?
But Montezuma's younger brother, Cuitlahuac, isn't a man easily rattled. This senior military commander demands a swift, sharp campaign to annihilate the interlopers. He argues they may have strange new weapons, but they're small in number and no match for the Eagle warriors. But the Aztec world is dominated by religion. As the ultimate theological leader, Montezuma is determined to find a spiritual explanation for the arrival of this strange force. And it's the Spanish helmet his spies have acquired that catches his attention. Some reports suggest he sees a resemblance to the headdress of the god Huitzilopochtli.
I think when Montezuma is processing this information, he's going to take a religious slant on this. As far as he's concerned, this is a portent from heaven.
Other accounts claim Montezuma sees connections with Quetzalcoatl, a white-faced god who vanished across the sea to the east. Prophecies state if Quetzalcoatl returns in Aztec Year 1 read, he will strike at kings. It is now Year 1 read, and it seems a white-faced leader has indeed appeared from the east.
Is it the return of one of the gods? Is Cortez one of the ancient Mexican gods? What is going on here? Why are these strange people landing on my coast? Where is this going to end?
Montezuma overrules Cuitlahuac and the warriors. He decides violence is the wrong strategy to keep this unknown force out of his capital. Ambassadors have suggested that there is one thing that these strangers value above all: gold. And so Montezuma makes the decision to buy them off.
Cortez was presented with beautiful gold presents.
It's the last thing Montezuma should have done.
They thought, well, this is interesting, we're onto a good thing here, we want more of this.
The Spanish just keep coming, heading straight for the Aztec capital.
The more Montezuma promises them, the more they understand must be there. If he can give us all of this, what else has he got?
That's how he ends up with Cortes on his doorstep.
After a 7-month, arduous march, Cortes and his band of conquistadors get their first sight of the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan. They have never seen anything like it.
It's only when they get to Tenochtitlan they can see the sheer scale of what the Aztecs have.
The conquistadors were absolutely impressed with the beauty of the city of Tenochtitlan. A city surrounded by buildings built on a lake with overlooking volcanoes, covered with snow.
The awestruck Spaniards make their way across the causeway separating the capital from the mainland.
It is almost certainly the largest city any of them have ever seen, perhaps 250,000 people.
A city bigger and better than those of Seville and Granada.
Finally, Cortes gets to meet the man whose powerful and wealthy empire he plans to seize. Spanish accounts state there was now an exchange of gifts with Montezuma. Historians disagree over whether Montezuma receives Cortes as a god or as a respected ambassador of a mighty foreign empire. However, there is no doubting that the emperor now rolls out the red carpet for the conquistadors.
Moctezuma was giving the best he could offer to Cortes and to his soldiers. He offered the palace of Axayacatl. The Spaniards were very welcomed by the Mexican king.
But whether by accident or design, Montezuma has placed the Spaniards in a location where they can be kept an eye on. They will be lodged close to the headquarters of the Eagle Warriors.
Where Cortes was staying, which was in a former ruler's palace, is very near to the Eagle precinct. In all likelihood, he would have been aware of the Eagle Warriors simply because they were some of the most prominent figures in society.
The Eagle Warriors are now eye to eye with the Spanish and leave them in no doubt as to what their job is in the Aztec Empire.
The Spaniards would have picked them out for soldiers, from their dress, from the way they carried themselves. This is their army. And this two rough street gangs eyeing each other up.
But the Eagle Warriors are mystified by the behavior of the Spanish soldiers in their midst. They appear more interested in grabbing gold than posing any real military threat. Furthermore, the Eagles have the conquistadors outnumbered and contained in their palace compound. What the Aztecs don't understand yet is just what sort of man they have let into their city.
There's no doubt that Cortes was a very clever, strategic thinking soldier. He realized that they were in a very difficult situation, but he also realized that there were enormous riches and rewards to be had by staying put.
There is now a period of uneasy peace between the Eagle warriors and the Spaniards. But it was never likely to last, and is shattered when Cortés receives an urgent dispatch from the coast. 7 of the conquistadors' comrades in arms have been attacked and killed, and they have died the Aztec way. The Spaniards were taken captive, bound, and forced up to the altar. Once there, their hearts were ripped out. The conquistadors are appalled at the news. It's a timely reminder of their likely fate if the Eagle warriors go on the offensive. But for now, the Spanish are hell-bent on revenge.
You can kill, but you don't sacrifice. Killing, but not murder. What the Aztecs are doing is murder. It's the deliberate killing of helpless prisoners.
But the canny Cortés channels his men's anger in a clever way. He leads an armed deputation to the royal palace. He wants to seize himself a hostage, and not just any hostage.
One of the masterstrokes that he had was to carry out the kidnapping of Montezuma. Cortés was very clever because he was saying, it's not me that wants to keep you here. I would let you go back today if I could, but it's all my captains that they're crying for your blood. I'm really looking after your best interests.
It's unclear why Montezuma finally does give in to the threats of Cortés. But comply he does, and the mighty emperor allows himself to be marched off and placed under effective house arrest.
In order to use Montezuma effectively as a puppet ruler, though, there has to be a degree of consent. And whether that's obtained through fear or through a need for cooperation is hard to tell.
Whichever the case, the kidnapping of Montezuma opens up an unprecedented crisis for the intensely hierarchical Aztec Empire. Any likely response can only come from senior military commanders and leading Eagle warriors.
It's possible, of course, that there was actually quite a lot of dissent amongst people like the warrior leaders. You can't imagine these great, brave, military figures standing round and allowing the Spanish to obviously dominate.
No doubt there was debate behind the scenes as to how to deal with this.
The obvious rallying point for the dissenting warriors is Montezuma's brother, Cuitlahuac, the man who has opposed the Spanish from day one. But in the Aztec Empire, there is no precedent for going against the wishes of an emperor.
He was a commander of the army, he was the highest ranking individual in the state, he was a demigod, and so if he said he was happy to go along with it, which apparently he did, there wasn't very much anyone else could do.
To add insult to injury, Cortés now demands the keys to the Totocalli, the empire's vast treasure house. This is what the Spanish have crossed the seas and risked their necks for. Jewelry, precious stones, and gold. Huge amounts of gold. With Montezuma's consent, Cortés now controls the city and effectively nullifies the Eagle warriors. But then his delicate diplomatic balancing act, suddenly all comes crashing down. Cortés returns from a mission to the coast to find Tenochtitlan in open revolt.
He comes back to the city and is very unhappy to find his troops besieged and starving in the palace where they'd been staying.
Cortés had left the city in a state of uneasy peace, but now returns to bloody mayhem.
Alvarado, who he'd left in charge, is a rather blunt instrument, to put it mildly, and he obviously has instigated an outright battle where Cortés hadn't wanted one.
Alvarado has led a massacre of up to 1,000 high-ranking Aztecs, including senior Eagle warriors, at a religious festival in the main temple.
In the middle of this festival, he decided to attack and massacre the participants, which caused huge consternation and disquiet in the city, as you can imagine.
It's the final straw for the military commanders and embittered Eagle warriors. Finally, they decide this is the time to fight back.
High-ranking individuals have decided that Montezuma is a lost cause.
His authority is being undercut, his role as a representative of the gods is being undercut.
Well, they decided that they would just give up on him.
They replace him even though he's still alive, and that's almost unheard of.
For the Eagle warriors, there is only one contender for the top job, the hero of countless wars, Cuitlawak. Cuitlawak instantly presses his Eagle warriors into service. And they have the Spanish just where they want them, holed up and surrounded in their palace, located in the center of the city.
The Spanish are trapped in the palace. They're running out of all the things they need.
I don't think we can have any doubt that the Spanish are absolutely in fear of their lives. Part of that was the realization that they were up against a very slick fighting machine.
Hopelessly outnumbered, Cortés begs Montezuma to appeal to his subjects to let the Spanish leave the city. But the hapless emperor is jeered and pelted with rocks. Montezuma is mortally wounded. Cortés now has a grim choice to make. He must either fight against the overwhelming odds or surrender with the inevitable consequences.
They slept with their armor on, they slept with their horses saddled and bridled, ready to escape. They knew that they were in a very perilous situation.
Cuitlawak now summons his top warriors to a secret briefing. He reveals his strategy for annihilating the invaders. They will starve the conquistadors out into the open, where they will have to stand and fight. If they choose to make a run for it, the warriors will be ready.
Part of their strategy is to make the exit from the city as complicated and as difficult as they can.
The city is surrounded by a wide lake. The only way out is across one of the 5 causeways connecting Tenochtitlan with the mainland. The Spanish are besieged in their palace, just off the central temple precinct. The most direct way out of the city is to head west for the Tacuba Causeway and use it to retreat to the mainland. But Cuitlawak has a surefire way of cutting off the escape route and ensnaring them in the city.
They remove a lot of the bridges that allowed people to cross over the causeways and the canals.
They would have worked out that this was going to be a very dangerous place to get trapped in.
And if the Spanish do manage to make it as far as the breached causeway, the Eagle warriors will be ready to go in for the kill.
That's when they see it's their moment to pick off the retreating troops.
It's a lot easier to kill people if you're knocking them into the water.
It's an obvious place for an ambush.
The situation is becoming increasingly desperate in the Spanish compound. Cortés mounts the walls to scout a potential escape route out of the city. But what he sees shocks him.
Cortés can see already the bridges have been destroyed or rendered useless.
Even worse, by now the conquistadors are almost out of water, food, and gunpowder. Their options are stark. Break out and face a quick end at the hands of the Eagle warriors, or stay put and slowly starve to death.
They decide that they're just going to have to break out.
Cortés may be trapped, but this Spaniard is not going down without a fight. He orders his men to rip down the wooden beams from the roof of the palace. They lash the spars together. They hope this makeshift bridge will span the gaps in the causeway. The conquistadors are almost ready to break out, but first, they have one final all-important job.
It tells us a lot about them that before they break out, they divide up the gold and every man has his share.
And a lot of the soldiers loaded themselves up with this gold. I mean, why wouldn't they? It was too good an opportunity to miss.
Midnight. The Spanish pull out. Unimpeded, they make their way stealthily through the city and head due west towards the Tacuba Causeway.
They start to escape at night. This is a city with very regular, very straight streets. It wouldn't be terribly difficult to find your way to the causeway from the central precinct.
It all seems to be going well for the Spanish. They reach the lakeside, and then...
The Mexicans were ready to kill as many Spaniards as they could.
The Eagle warriors soon put the portable bridge out of action. Now they have the Spanish trapped all along the causeway.
They're, of course, at an incredible tactical disadvantage, being attacked from all sides while they're trying to escape across these narrow causeways.
The Eagle warriors are seasoned, they are skillful, they have terrible weapons that inflict terrible damage.
However good your armour is, it will only take you so far against incredible weight of numbers.
Despite their sophisticated weaponry, the Spanish are now cut off by the Eagle warriors.
The Spanish had to wade through and jump over these gaps, these canals, where the bridges had been taken away.
And then it descends into chaos.
People trampling over other people to try and cross the gaps in the causeways.
The Spanish now pay a high price for their lust for gold.
They're running for their lives and they're carrying a large weight of gold with them. So either they're unbelievably brave or unbelievably stupid.
And a lot of them actually came to grief because the weight of the gold in their clothes just dragged them to the bottom of the water and they drowned.
Cortés and a few of his men escape, but many stragglers are rounded up, bound and bundled away by the Eagle warriors. They know exactly what to do with their captives.
Spaniards didn't surrender. They were stunned and captured and dragged away.
The proud Eagle warriors have suffered months of humiliation at the hands of the Spanish invaders. Now it is time for their revenge. The Spanish who have made it to the safety of the mainland can do nothing but look back at the city in horror.
The sight of the sacrifices on the pyramids, the sound of their own companions being butchered up there.
The Eagle warriors have wiped out most of the army of Cortés and retrieved the bulk of the looted treasure. Legend has it that as he looks back over the killing ground, Cortés weeps. The Spanish call it la noche triste, the night of tears. But for the Eagle warriors, this is their finest hour. Within a year, Cortés raises a new army and once again marches on Tenochtitlan. After months of fierce street fighting, the Spanish finally take the shattered city. The Eagle warriors are not defeated by cold Spanish steel, but by virulent European diseases. Thousands of Eagle warriors and millions of Aztecs succumb to smallpox and are wiped out. History often dismisses the Aztec warriors as hopelessly ineffectual when faced by the conquistadors. However, it is clear that on La Noche Triste, the Eagle warriors routed the Spanish, then the most powerful nation in Europe.
During the period of the Spanish conquest, this is certainly their largest military victory.
I don't think there's any doubt that the expulsion of the Spanish from the city following the events of the Noche Triste was a major victory for the Aztecs.
The Noche Triste was I think, a tactical victory for the Aztecs. They defeated the Spaniards, but the Spaniards got away. If they'd killed them all, it might have been different.
Today, the Mexican capital stands on the ruins of one of the most fabulous cities ever constructed, and on the bones of one of the most powerful fighting forces ever raised, the Aztec Eagle warriors.